Right, so the first port of call on this bumper, obviously I've took it off. I'm at the stage of cutting it to put the diffuser into it. However, like most diffusers, you can normally just lay the diffuser over the top of the bumper, draw around it and cut it out. However, with the GTI, it's got this section here that sticks out, and obviously there's quite a lot of plastic that sticks out on the diffuser. So the way I'm having to do this one is basically make a stencil. So I'm going to make this paper stencil, which is just a case of, obviously that's Barry, move out of the way, mate. Yeah, it's a case of drawing around the stencil, drawing around the diffuser like this with a pen. Remove the diffuser out of the way, you're left with this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut slightly smaller, so obviously the inside line of this piece of paper, down to obviously each of the end points, and I'm going to fold it over. So I've got like a solid line across here and a slightly smaller stencil than what I need. Centre it to the bumper, and then I'm going to draw on where it is. Now the reason I'm doing it slightly smaller means that obviously the diffuser won't fit in first time, but then I won't have cut too much kind of plastic out of this part. It'll just be a case of just kind of flap this skin back very slowly and removing bits of plastic till I get an almost perfect fit. I do think with this, I think it's quite a deeper diffuser, so I think I may end up coming into this point here. So I just need to check where my registration plate is going to sit, because I do think it might need to come up slightly higher than these lines, which isn't an issue. I could have it hanging below, but I don't really want it to. And I'm also going to remove this line here, so you won't really notice it. It'll basically, hopefully, in theory, come up and sit nicely in there. Right, so the stencil has basically been drawn on the bumper, marked out where my plate is, because I like tucking my plate as high as I can in there. But also additionally to that is I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to move the diffuser up slightly, so I just want to know what room I've got to play with. Tools for kind of cutting this plastic out, what I personally use is an angle grinder cut disc, and I go very slowly around. And then for any kind of awkward areas, I normally use a flat disc on the grinder to go out. I've also got one of these, which not everyone will have, but this is a finger bout sander, and that's good for kind of awkward areas where I've just got to take a kind of little bit of plastic away. You don't really need that one, to be honest. A simple angle grinder will do. So plan is cut this out. Obviously this is smaller than the diffuser. I'm just going to roughly see where that fits, because I want to get it tucked at the bottom, but I also don't want to take it up too high in case it causes any issues with the metalwork on the back of the GTI. So I'm going to cut that out, roughly pop that in, see how much it's hanging by, and then I'm going to put the bumper back on the GTI to double check everything. But ideally I think I want it slightly higher. So that's that. Right, GTI bottom cut out, obviously using the yellow line. That's got me to this stage here. Now I've only obviously just dropped the diffuser in to kind of see where I've got to correct the angle, also if it needs to come slightly further up, which I do believe it will do. But yeah, I'll give you a rough idea of what it's going to look like, which I think is pretty trick, to be fair. So yeah, the case is going to be, and as with any probably other diffuser, is pop the bumper back on the car, check what sort of angle the diffuser sits at. Because I could plastic weld it up now, put it on the car, and then that's pointing like to the floor or to the sky, and it won't look right. So you want to make sure that before you bond anything is in the correct place where it needs to be. And the best way of doing that obviously is putting this bumper back on the car, getting your diffuser ready with all the cuts where it's kind of perfectly fitted. I mean, I need to move that back a little bit, and then once you've got it kind of where you want it, just use some temporary hot glue and just kind of glue around, hold it onto the car till it dries. And that'll work as a temporary fix-in, so you can remove it from the vehicle, plastic weld the back, and then with the hot glue as being hot glue, you just simply pick a bit, and then you'll probably be able to pull it off all in one go, and then kind of plastic weld and fill the front as well. So yeah, it gives you an overall look. I mean, the angles again won't probably be correct, and the splitter will sit back slightly inwards than it is at the minute, but it should look pretty trick, to be fair. Right, back of the GTI again. Top section of the bumper's put back on. This is obviously a standard bumper. It's not fully fixed properly, but it's just basically held on by these two bolts. And then once I start plastic welding, I'm just going to nip the kind of bolts in on the arch liner, which will hold the bottom of the bumper roughly where it needs to be. Obviously I've lost the mounts which were down here because that was part of the underbit, so this is a bit floppy. But that's that basically. So this kind of, after looking at it properly, it's going to need a lot more surgery than I first thought. I'm happy because I do welding pretty much every day, so I'm going to have to do probably a bit of kind of adaptation to this crash support bumper, because at the minute it will fit, but the diffuser's a bit lower than kind of what I wanted to, so it will sit in there, but I want it obviously pushed back because it's going to look shit if it isn't pushed back. And also the angle's not correct. I want the kind of the angle a bit more angled like that, because if it's angled kind of like that, obviously you can see the top section looks shit straight, so you've got to kind of get a good in between, which is probably that. But then obviously that's causing issues with the impact bar. The other thing which causes issues, I'm not planning on towing anyone, so I've just lobbed it straight off. Obviously I'm going to tidy up them ends and paint it, but the towing eye, now you might have to, if you want to use that, providing you're good with welding, because bear in mind you're going to be towing something pretty heavy off of it, you could lower it and then just bracket it in, just brace it, some good slugs of weld on there will be fine, just to kind of lower that towing eye. I'm not planning on towing anyone, so I ain't being asked for that. So yeah, it's just to get clearance on this rear section. I'm going to try and take tabs off of here. I'm going to try and do pickup points on here, which is why I want to raise it slightly, so I can have the mounting points again without having to make brackets, because that's the only other kind of thing I potentially need to do, would be to bracket. And then I may need to make a bracket section from here to here somewhere. Obviously the heat shield's going to probably need to come out, just to hold this centerpiece, because obviously you'll have the air coming from under the vehicle, and it's just going to be a bit of this bit's going to be flopping about. So I'm going to do a bracket on that, but then I might also integrate, if I can do, another stop light. So I've got a stop light in that central bit. So yeah, it's going to need heavy fabrication to get this on. It's not a standard kind of splitter, so don't do it unless you're completely competent in weld it. Obviously go out cutting this out, I have to plasma cut this out, make a tunnel to the center section, which I mean relocating the battery, losing my towing eye, which I'm not really that bothered about, and also modifying, but safely modifying the crash bar. So that means I'm going to basically have to cut it, move it up slightly and re-weld it, or failing that, what I will do is replace the crash bar with some CDS, which is roll cage material. But to be honest, I'd rather kind of cut and just lift that up slightly. So yeah, it's just basically the crash bar works in such a way where it's going to push the kind of the whole force of a rear accident into the bits where it joins onto the car. So you just need to make sure that that central section is not any weaker than it was originally, so it will need kind of sectioning and re-welding. I can't just kind of cut it out and leave it. I'm going to need this lower lip on it, so moving that part up. But yeah, it should be achievable. It's just a lot of faffing about, to be honest, and this rear end's probably going to need trimming down. So yeah, a bit more kind of work than I originally anticipated, but if you're still with me through this so far, then I'll document the rest of it. Right, I'm happy with the angle of the diffuser. It needed correcting because obviously the Fiat bumper is completely different to the Lupo. So although this probably sits straight on the Fiat, it won't on the Lupo because of the different angles. So I've kind of got it where I wanted it. The best way of kind of doing it temporarily is to hot glue gun, which is what these horrible bits are. The bonus of hot glue is being, once I've kind of plastic welded at the back to kind of tack it, this will all just pick off easily, which will allow me to plastic weld the rest. Now there's a lot of modification to fit this one, annoyingly. I'm going to have to put a filler piece in here, which will be PP plastic, which will mean that'll all need plastic welding round. But yeah, once I've got to the stage of it being tacked, plastic welded, it won't be too far off. I'm then going to be onto the metalwork to run an exhaust to both sides. Glue stuck in place. What I'm doing is now we're going to the back of the bumper where this diffuser is, and I'm kind of grinding it back, the lip off, and then using a hot stapler, which is a plastic stapler, to put these plastic staples in. So just flap disking that so it's flat, and then mount the staples in. I'm going to staple it all the way around, and then I'm going to go over the top and plastic weld it both sides. To put these hot staples in press the button to heat the staple up, push it into the plastic between the two joins and give it a twist. Let go of the button. So now you're just waiting for the staple to cool down. And once it's cool, you can then lift the stapler away and proceed to the next staple. Once they're in, it's a case of cutting these tabs off the end and then plastic welding over the top. So that's nice and solid now. And I'm slowly working my way around, just forming the shape that I want the bumper to be in. So that's that side. And I've got to kind of get that process all the way around before I start trimming everything else. The lower half is plastic welded in, and I've had to do this extension piece here, just because obviously the plate recess on the back of the GTI bumper sits in further. Because if I was to push this further back, I wouldn't really have much of a lip around here, and I kind of wanted the lip. So extension piece put in. It's a PP plastic to match both bits of plastic, so plastic weld together. I've hot stapled it, as you can see. So now it's just a case of plastic welding over the top, and then that'll be nice and solid. I mean, it's all done ready anyway, but obviously I just want to make sure this is properly plastic welded beforehand. Then I've got just a quick repair to do on this corner, and then I'm pretty much ready to plastic weld on the outside, and then start the filling process. I'm also going to fill these bits around here. It's done. Plastic welded across there. Obviously it needs sanding, filling, etc., but it's just to obviously keep the flexibility in and also keep it rigid without any splits. The only issue is the crash bar needs to be basically shortened, so it's going to be a case of sectioning it here, buttoning it up and welding it. Now, section 25mm out, using a bit of masking tape around the legs of the bumper, then welded it back up, a bit of piss can over it, and yeah, it's ready to go back on. Right, once you've got your diffuser in, whether that be a TT diffuser, one off a VXR, something like that, something completely different to what's supposed to be on there, you may be looking for that you've got room to run an exhaust, or you may be unlucky and find that you haven't. So that's when you'll have to do some modifications to the boot floor, or maybe just a single piece of skin metal here. Now what you could do in my situation, I'm not going to do it, is you could have a working exhaust system on this side, and then in this hole maybe just make that as a dummy exhaust. I want it both working, so I'm going to kind of show you how to do that. But the first kind of thing that you need to do is pop your bumper on. This obviously isn't finished, but I kind of need it roughly where it needs to be at the minute, so then I can work out where I need to do the metalwork. So what I'll do is I'll get a pen, something like a paint pen, and I'll mark out the section of where this is, so when I take the bumper off I know where I can cut and where needs modifying. So I'm going to take the bumper off, I'm going to mark that out, and I'm going to cut it. Now ideally I've got a plasma cutter, but I can't get to it, so I'm going to have to carefully cut it out with an angle grinder. But yeah, basically I'm running a 3-inch exhaust, so I'm going to cut a 4-inch circle, so I've got clearance all the way around it, or maybe a little bit more. And yeah, and then I'm going to work out where the boot floor underneath may need modifying to get my exhaust pipe kind of from this side here to a Y piece.